All right. What a weird game.
Field goal. Weird one way to put it.
So much offense, so few touchdowns. First touchdown score still alive. We almost had a Manhurts touchdown, which would have been wild.
Oh my God.
We almost had two Pickens touchdowns.
Learned a new rule.
Yeah.
There's about 400 yards. Or about 10. The rough math is 400 yards should be about 27 points where we're at. So a little short on points. Obviously, that's what happens when the teams go 0 for 5 in the red zone. But some good defense is being played once they get to the 10. The Giants cannot tackle a running back right now, unless it's actually they should stop running the other one. It should just be Harris. Warren's not moving the ball. Like, let him go out and catch some passes, I guess. So it is 9-9, and both quarterbacks are playing well. The receivers, they're finding them, just not in the red zone. What do you think, Drew? What's our second half line here?
We should welcome our guests. We are a 3-man show today.
I wanted to see how long we can go.
Welcome. The great Mike Somich has joined us to talk a little Breeders' Cup after we break down this halftime show. And I honestly don't know that there's any adjustments to be made for either offense. I think you just keep doing what you're doing. The defenses, the adjustments would be to tackle better and to not leave Darius Slayton wide open if you're the Steelers. But ultimately, I think the points are coming here. This feels like the closing total of 36.5 was wrong. And I think we just shoot for an over unless you have a strong opinion on the side. Let's look at the numbers because I'm still waiting for Chris to pop here.
Should be 20, 19.5.
I see 19.5 and I see Giants +3. Mike, what have you made of this sloppy but fun and weird Monday Night Football game?
Entertaining game. Like you said, both quarterbacks playing well. The Giants pass rush getting to Russell Wilson, 3 sacks, I believe, or 2 sacks already in the first half here. So I would think the adjustment here is from the Pittsburgh defense, and they're able to heat up Daniel Jones a little bit better than they were in that first half, and it makes it a lot harder for the Giants to move the football. Steelers have been a better second half team. Right now, I think on Bookmaker, it's 3 -103. I would probably go Steelers -3. But I don't disagree with the over number either. Like Andy mentioned, 400 yards of offense. You'd expect to see a heck of a lot more than 18 points. We saw Dable go for it on a 4th down early, so he's clearly trying to push points as well. So I would lean Steelers in the over here in the second half.
Yeah, that last sack too. Just a couple of bonehead plays by some veterans in Tomlin in challenging something that already was challenged and losing a timeout. Could have afforded him a different outlook later in the half, and then that last sack where Lawrence and Burns just got there. When you take the play clock to 0, they know the snap count at that point. Do you see the push he got in the middle? Lawrence was in his lap in like half a second. The guard can't even stand up. Like, he's an animal. You can't take the play clock down that low and expect not to have. it's the same thing that we saw happen to Rodgers a couple times this year. That would be an adjustment I'd make. I'd love to take some points here. I think this total did get up into the low to mid 40s for a little bit when the Steelers were driving, but like we said, no touchdowns.
I got a bunch of
popping back down to 36.
I got a bunch of pre-flop 6.5 Giants, so I'm inclined to go Steelers here instead of points because, the pass rush for the Steelers could show up anytime now, and Daniel Jones, if the Steelers get a stop because Giants get the ball first, correct?
Yes.
So if the Steelers get a stop and then put together a touchdown drive, then all of a sudden this feels like okay.
Then
now
have they been able to run the ball, or they been able to run out the clock?
Yeah, right.
They almost running too good.
Yeah, like this could get rough. So I think I think the most likely outcome of this game is the Steelers win by 3 points, which makes the push probability of 3 appetizing as well, and don't have to lay 3 in a hook. Capture some middles at 4s and 5s and 6s for me at least. Let's go Pittsburgh -3. Does that sound good, Andy?
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to play the over as well, though, too.
The crowd's
they already did.
The crowd's having a nice time out there, which is fun. They're getting a lot of. It's a
good fan base, good stadium.
Yeah. It is noteworthy that these two quarterbacks are playing well, which Mike brought up. I didn't really see that on as I handicap the game.
I'm shocked how well the Giants offensive line's holding up because they were awful last week. Andrew Thomas, his first week out, they looked terrible. And this is a legitimate pass rush. And the Steelers just have not gotten to Daniel Jones. If you heat him up, he is usually not very good. And so I'd expect that Pittsburgh tries to find ways at halftime to get to Daniel Jones in the second half.
Yeah, man, so many almost touchdowns. Neighbors almost had a touchdown. It feels like this has been a penalty fest too, but there's only been 7 accepted penalties for 50 yards or for 60 yards.
Who's the tight end?
Manhurts.
Great name.
Manhurts Steamroller.
Yeah, great name. Never saw a first touchdown price on him. I would love to know what that was. Yeah, God, there's so much going on right now. This is incredible. You want to put this one to bed? Talk a little horses?
Yeah, and again, just kind of closing point to like what Mike said. It feels like Highsmith is back. Like between him and Watts, something's happening because not only is you're
Watts
missing
playing, right?
Thomas, but
Watts playing.
I haven't heard his name called once.
He hasn't hit the stat sheet. No, he's
got one tackle.
One tackle.
Luminor was banged
a solo
up as well.
tackle too.
So you're starting a backup left tackle and a banged up right tackle. You would think by attrition he hasn't been sacked. It's only been Russ. So all right, it'll be Steelers. I'm playing some over, and we're starting overtime early because all the best girl horses.
We're not going to put that. We can't put the overtime up on.
We can't put it on Mike's face like that. I'll have to make a new one for when there's a third. It's so rare.
Yeah. So you teased it before we got started. I'm fired up for this Breeders' Cup, particularly for the Breeders' Cup Classic. This is of course, the most prestigious and lucrative race of the year. The purse is up to $7 million. I think they was like 8 years in a row, it was 6 million. Now they're like, fuck it, seven. Make it 7. And this is a fun handicap. If you don't know already, the Breeders' Cup Classic is 3-year-olds and up. There's really kind of it's kind of a fun remember those guys for horses of years past who you handicap through their 3-year-old seasons, and then like they're lightly raced, and they have a final shot at glory. And
some are very lightly raced.
Some are very lightly raced as 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds.
Just gonna come back and race one time and get ready for this.
It's a very international vibe. This is like USA versus Ireland versus Japan. Really, it's USA versus Japan, but the Irish horse has gotten a lot of support, so we'll see. And as I kind of look at the race, I would say that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that over the last 8-ish years, there was like a pivot in terms of strategy for 3-year-olds where they were lightly raced as 2-year-olds, and then they sort of felt like they ran out of gas and were fatigued by the time we got to the Breeders' Cup. And we haven't seen the 3-year-olds performing especially well. There's only been one 3-year-old winner, and that was the weirdo 2020 season where there was no spring meets. And now, so it's kind of been an older, more experienced horses game winning the Breeders' Cup Classic the last handful of years. Is that going to change this year with this really good 3-year-old class?
Well, if a U.S. horse wins it, it feels like it's going to be a 3-year-old. And so you got to really hope that those 3-year-olds who, like you had mentioned, like we've seen a shift in training style where after Justify won the Kentucky Derby, won the Triple Crown without running as a 2-year-old, more and more trainers are like, well, maybe we don't need to have as many prep races to get them ready for the Derby. Then we saw Mage last year win the Derby without running as a 2-year-old. And that kind of solidified the idea that we don't have to really crank these horses up as much. Also, if we don't win the Derby, we don't really have to run in another Triple Crown race. So we don't have to put these horses through 3 races in 5 weeks. And then we can focus on the summer where you have the Haskell, where you have the Travers, a bunch of these big races, and then focus to the Breeders' Cup versus trying to run this gauntlet as a 3-year-old, because what we saw is that it just wasn't possible to then give your best effort here. And even with Fierceness this year, I mean, that's kind of what we've seen from him, where he ran 2 races over the summer, but hasn't really been seen as much as you'd expect, or as much as you've seen some of these older horses in spots. So you're getting a fresher Fierceness again. Now, does that mean he shows up and runs huge? We'll find out. You mentioned the international flair. We've got 19 horses from Japan. I've seen an over-under set at 2.5 wins for Japan. This is going to be one of their.
I love that you can bet on that.
Yeah, you can bet over under for countries now, which is incredible. Like I love the
like
fact
the
that we're
Olympics.
seeing that.
This is awesome.
And of course, famously, the Japanese trainer of Forever Young had his breakout performance at Del Mar in 2021.
Yes, yeah.
2021. I was telling Drew I had
Yahagi.
There was a long price in like the Distaff that just blew up my tickets. Like it was
Lady
like
March. Was it Lady March?
I've tried to forget this horse's name like 10 times because I had everyone chasing her for the pick 5, and that damn horse still somehow got home at 22-1.
Did I get the name right? Was that?
I don't remember. I've literally blocked that race. I couldn't even tell you the horses I had at this point because it's just like, let's just not remember that anymore.
All right, sorry. Yeah. So, you were famously a very, fierceness bull for the Derby. Do you have a sense of what happened there? Do you think he was right? There was a lot of kind of cloak and dagger stuff about him having a crack in his hoof and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't feel like they really were, like, as soon as he kind of started to fade, I felt like they were very cautious with him on race day. Are you back in love with fierceness, or do you feel like you saw the best of him at like the Travers?
It's tough because look, if fierceness in the Derby had everything that you wanted, like the trip was perfect. He just didn't pick. He didn't fire. Like if you give me that trip, I bet him again at 3-1 every single time in that race. And you hope that he shows up, because if he shows up, he wins the race for fun. But he didn't show up. And you're right. There was worries about a cracked hoof heading into that. He had not been able to put back-to-back races together. He did do that this summer with the Jim Dandy and the Travers. So you have less concern. Maybe they were Putzer figured something out on how to get him ready to go every single race. It's an interesting question, because if he runs back to the Travers, he's going to be ultra tough in here. Like I think it's very difficult for any of these Japanese horses. You've got 3 of them. You got Forever Young, Ushba Tesoro, and Dermaso Tagate, friends from Derby's past that are also in here as well.
That one.
The international horse, though, that you got to look at, and this is City of Troy. You mentioned it. This is an Irish horse that has never touched the dirt, yet is your morning line favorite.
Amazing.
In the Breeders' Cup Classic.
In the hell.
So
I didn't look at the odds. I didn't look at the odds. I looked at the field. I started looking at like the horses,
past performances,
and I fell in love with City of Troy. And I'm like, oh man, this can be like the 3rd or 4th favorite, because I hadn't done a lot of research. You go in, and I said that to Drew. I love everything about this horse, but the price, and obviously because of I'm sure he's allowed to train on some dirt tracks, and they've done some things to try to get him used to some traffic. But it seems like the kind of start he would get from the inside, and the jockey, and the tactical races that they've run already, like he would be able to just be right behind that, maybe the lead pack, and not worry about the what do you call that, where you just get a bunch of dirt kicked in your face, just the traffic
kickback.
dirt or what? The kickback. If he's not worried about that, and that doesn't bother him, and he gets a good start, it kind of seems like he should be the favorite. And we talked about Justified enough.
Yep. And that's like that is the big question mark in here, because if Fierceness runs his absolute A race, the only horse that can beat him is City of Troy. But we don't know what City of Troy is in a lot of ways. That being said, like this was one of the most hyped horses in Europe for the last year and a half. People were talking about this as a possible Derby horse for Aidan O'Brien. He decided to stay over in Europe, stay on the turf, faced Older the last 2 in 2 of the biggest races in Europe, and dusted both of those fields. Like both were 1-length wins, but it was never a race. Like he was clearly going to win both those races. And the other part of your handicap, when you're talking about this, Aidan O'Brien, one of the most accomplished European trainers. But
he's never done it here, right?
Well, when he ships over for the turf for the Breeders' Cup, he gets bet. You watch out, right? Yeah. And if City of Troy was going to the turf, which is a 1.5-mile turf race, $5 million purse, he is the favorite in that race. So the fact that Aidan O'Brien, who is a trainer that is literally Hall of Fame level, is saying, I'm going to skip a race where I'm in a $5 million race, I'm going to skip being the favorite. Instead, I'm going to go to the Breeders' Cup Classic and try dirt for the first time. It's showing a lot of confidence in the horse. And this is going to be his last race of his career. He's already announced retirement, announced the stud deal. So some people are saying it's because they want to see him on dirt, because if he runs on dirt, this is going to be an all-time level sire, except from a financial perspective, because you have the turf and the dirt bloodlines. He's got an older brother, never touched the dirt. The mother, has 4 kids. None of them ever touched the dirt. So you have no clue what you're getting on the bottom side of this horse. But to me, the big thing is what Andy mentioned. How is this horse going to handle kickback? When you're on turf, you don't catch a lot of kickback. You end up, the turf doesn't pop up in your face. In dirt, you're going to get rocks and dirt and all kinds of stuff into your chest, into your face. And City of Troy's not making the lead. Arthur's Ride is going to go
I was going to
right
ask
from
you
the
that.
outside. And so City of Troy is going to have to sit 5th, 6th around the first turn, around the second turn, and going to have to deal with new aspects that he's never dealt with before. It feels like he could be a monster. It really does. But do you want to bet feels like at 5-2? It's the price versus performance question. If this horse is 10-1, everyone's betting him. But at 5-2, it's a lot more difficult to really get behind him.
What did you think about
good
the
job
late
by the
chip?
morning lines maker on that one, because like you're right. I wanted this horse. And I thought it would be 4th favorite, and it certainly wasn't. But yeah, like you said with the pace thing, if he can handle it and he's in that second group around the halfway point, it feels like he just I like how you say dusted. He just dusts people at the end then. Because I watched a little bit, and it's funny. I sent Drew the end of the Travers as well, because that's just such a fun ending as well. I forgot how much I love horse racing every time we take a little break from it. But Jesus, the ending of the Travers was so good. But Drew, talk about your horse then.
Well, I gotta ask you. I gotta ask you the before moving off City of Troy. You're not worried at all about the late shipping. Like he's not having a ton of time here to adjust to a pretty monumental trip.
You're talking about City of Troy, right?
Yeah, City of Troy.
Yeah,
right. I mean, did Nate O'Brien ship today?
I heard he was already over here, so I'll have to double check if it was shipped today or shipped earlier. I would assume he's already over here because you have to pass quarantine once you come into the country. So I'll double check and see if I can find exactly when he shipped there. It's again, because it's Aiden O'Brien, that kind of stuff doesn't concern me as much. The plan was always to run him in this race, which also tells you the belief that the connections and the trainer have in the horse. So the shipping schedule is something where they've decided long ago that they were going to send him over here. I would definitely say you want him over here longer so you can just run him on the dirt a couple times, get a couple workouts into him, see how he's running in the morning over that surface as a handicapper. But they didn't even put him as a possible entry in the turf. They made up their minds months ago that this was the landing spot for him, which makes you believe that there's no world where they have not seen him run on dirt. It's just the rest of the world has not seen him run on dirt. Okay. So you'd expect he can handle it. It's just, can he handle everything else against the best the world has to offer? And I say the world because, I mean, Forever Young is a definite player in this race, 6-1. Yeah. He ran huge in the Derby, probably deserved to win it if it wasn't for the dick move by Sierra Leone, just bumping him the whole way down the stretch. I think Ushba Tesoro is a horse that's proven that he can win on any track across the world. 12-1 right now, another Japanese horse. I wouldn't sell him short. Dermasotagate is another horse where the talent is there. He's also run in the U.S. before, so we'll see what he brings. To me, it's the 4 internationals.
He was the runner-up last year.
Yeah, it's the 4 internationals in fierceness. Yeah, the runner-up.
He placed.
Yeah, he placed. So
he should have a name for that.
He came in second.
It's fierceness for the U.S. and it's the 4 euros for me, and then just deciding how many you want to use in the pick 5 and who you want to put on top. But I can't leave City of Troy off, and that makes it hard for me to play fierceness because I don't want to play the 2 favorites, and I'm just. There's too many signs that this could be a monster. And Aiden O'Brien's talked about Ghost Zapper, who's a very good dirt horse. He's compared this horse to Ghost Zapper multiple times. That's a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. There's a lot of signs here that this is a runner. We'll see what happens with him. Or I'm sorry.
What do you think of more?
By the way, good God, that's TJ Watt's music. He finally gets.
TJ Watt got.
He finally does something. Anyway, go ahead.
I did have a question too because
a million questions.
So the Forever Young. All right.
Yes,
so
let's talk about him.
So
I'm gonna probably single Forever
Drew
Young.
Likes Forever Young. I like Forever Young. Obviously, great Derby run. Didn't handle the traffic as well, but that was some rough traffic in such his life, and it was still a really, really, really good run. What's up with the Japanese dirt? So this isn't he's never run on dirt before, because obviously we saw him, but I watched some clips from over there. It's like sand. What is going on with the tracks over there? And does that ever happen where it's hey, this, it's not a turf horse. They've run on dirt, but it was Japanese dirt tracks. Are they way different? Because it looks way different to me.
every single climate, the racetrack is different. And so whenever you get anywhere near an ocean specifically, you're going to see different styles of racetracks. So like Del Mar's track is a very sandy track.
Mm-hmm.
And it's known like some horses at Santa Anita, which is a track that's a little bit more inland than where Del Mar is. They like that specific track more. Arrogate is the famous one who hated Del Mar, like hated it, and was phenomenal everywhere else. But for some reason, just did not like that Santa Anita track. Or certain countries have drier racetracks, and it makes it look a lot dustier because it's all that kickback kind of stays there. And then it also depends how you light it. We have wetter, heavier dirt tracks here in the U.S., and so you're not going to see as much of that dry racetrack that you see in some other places, but it's not uncommon to see a dirt like that.
Okay, let's talk about the thank you for explaining that. But let's talk about the details of Forever Young a little bit.
Tennis,
so it's like tennis. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the clay is different. The clay is different in Quito, Ecuador, compared to Rome,
Hamburg.
The clay is different in Madrid and Barcelona, and they're very close to each other, but different elevations. The Forever Young handicap, I think, is pretty straightforward. I will admit that I was at first excited to bet Forever Young at the Derby, and then in person seeing him was wildly unimpressed. It was like, oh my gosh, like this is, I guess it's a thoroughbred. Like he's small. He didn't really do anything in his prep for the Derby proper that told me he was going to be a factor at all. And I thought he was kind of the dead money in the pool, so to speak. And he should have won. I think he would have won if Mystic Dan doesn't get the golden rail, and Sierra Leone doesn't clearly interfere with him. And so I kind of had to kind of reframe my take on him after that race, and then I just kind of forgot about him because they specifically decided he's tired from the spring meets that he did. He traveled all over the world, right? He was like, he was effectively the UAE Derby and all that, like was where he was really kind of making his name before traveling to Kentucky. And they took him back to Japan and they just let him kind of chill out. And they prepped him for a race in October was the first time we've seen him since the Kentucky Derby, and stumbles out of the gate, but then just put a stomping on that, what was not a non-trivial field. It wasn't a
grade one. It was a grade one race. I mean, it was.
It was
750K race. It was a good, good money.
It was a good run from him, I thought. And even more than that, as I look at him now, eye test wise, he looks a lot fucking bigger. He looks like he grew like meaningfully since I remember seeing him at Churchill Downs in May. And I don't know, man. I can't get over the idea of them having sort of a beautiful runway to let him rest and recover, grow, and then ramp him back up from zero, where he could potentially have, something that we don't even really know in terms of top speed on Saturday. So and again, I'm also kind of a buyer in the idea that Yahagi was such a surprise breakout in 2021 at Del Mar, and that he kind of has already figured out some of the secrets of traveling, to the U.S. He brought the horse, I think Forever Young shipped like October 22nd.
I do have a little counterpoint to that.
Go ahead.
So, and completely different situation, because like you said, he raced in the Derby. He raced in a Japanese race on the 2nd of October. That's it since May. Obviously, when he went to Riyadh, it said didn't travel well, and it didn't look all that great in that first race. I think still won because it's just a class horse. But where are you? I want to ask Mike if he was worried. It's a longer trip, but I wanted to, is that something like, can horses have that trait where it's like, this horse just doesn't travel well, we got to get there so early? Now, I don't know how early they got to Kentucky last May either. And then I wonder about the, just what you think of the plan of don't race at all until October, do one prep race and then go.
I don't mind it. And it kind of goes back to the conversation we had at the start where, Drew mentioned the lack of success you've seen with 3-year-olds in this race. Well, that's because in a 3-year-old season, you're pointing to the Derby. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Right. And 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they're pointing to the Classic. And you work so it's like a golf hole, right? You work backward from the green. How long do you want your approach shot to be? How far do you hit your drive, right? That's very similar in horse racing. Where is your target? If it's the Breeders' Cup Classic, what is the best possible route to take that horse to the Breeders' Cup Classic? And, because Yahagi's had success in the Breeders' Cup before, he knows what he's doing if he's planning for the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he never wavered that this was the plan. And so you would expect that he wanted to get the one race into the horse. He was happy with what he saw. We went right over there. And if he felt like there were some conditioning issues around during the training program, he could have started this horse a month before and made this third off the layoff. But clearly the horse was training well. I thought he ran well in that race. The growth is impressive when you look at him in Kentucky versus in now, like just much more muscular, much more built
it's
out.
I'm not being fooled. You see it too?
From the camera shots, yes. I mean, again, obviously not being there, it does make a little bit of a difference because you don't know exactly what the size of the horse is, but based on what you've seen, it just looks like he's got a more muscular body, and that it's just a more developed horse, and that's kind of in line with what you'd expect.
He looks like a 4-year-old that typically wins this race.
The most development in horses is late
3
3-year-old to late 4-year-old season, and so maybe he's just developing a little bit earlier than a lot of the other 3-year-olds that we've seen. And again, like the trip he got wasn't great in the Derby. He doesn't want to be that far back. He has tactical speed. He wasn't able to use it that day. So you'd expect a better trip since it's not 20 horses. We've got a smaller field here. There's clear speed. Like I expect him to sit mid-pack here versus having to be in a situation where he's 16th place and having to pass 15 horses to get the win. I think he's going to be sitting there in 6th. And that makes it a lot more likely for him to kick as well. So I would not talk anyone off Forever Young if they want to use him. I think to me, it's you have like if Fierceness fires, City of Troy is the only horse that can beat him. But if Fierceness doesn't fire, or you get like the A- level race, if it's not the A+ Travers Effort, all of a sudden you have to add, the idea of Forever Young, Derma Sotogate, and Ushba Tesoro, who I think are all live. I would rank them City of Troy.
Sounds like you're going to put a little side bet on a Japanese sweep. It's kind of what I'm getting from this conversation.
I was looking for a prop of will a U.S. horse hit the try. I have not found it yet because I would take the no. I think there's a real chance you could get no U.S. horse in the try, and you should be able to get pretty good plus money on that.
Amazing. What did you think of the draw? Fierceness gets the 9 hole. City of Troy is in 3, and Forever Young is at 1. Right?
Is it 3?
Highland Falls is 2. City of Troy is in the 3 hole. And this is somewhat important because as Andy remembers from last year, Bird pooped to my wife and I said, "What number are you thinking?" She said 3, and of course, Wed Mario was wire to wire effectively. That happened again this weekend, by the way. We were piking and Bird pooped, and I said, "Give me a number." She said 3 again. So City of Troy has a little what's it called? Like when you have the bird there's a Roman term for this type of
I was gonna say je ne sais quoi. That's not Roman.
No, there's a auger. It's an auger. Yeah, it became pooped on by a bird. Anyway, what was your general thought on the draw? Do you feel like it helped no one, helped someone, or just probably is not going to matter at Del Mar in general?
I think that it actually hurt Fierceness more than anybody else. The speed's to his outside. Arthur's Ride's going to go. He's in the 11 post. He's going to cross Fierceness. If he gets over on Fierceness, then all of a sudden Fierceness has to change his style. Like we haven't seen Fierceness having to catch kickback and being sitting in 4th place and behind multiple speed horses. And it feels like that's the world we're going to be living in on Saturday. And if not, that means Fierceness is going with Arthur's Ride. And if that's the case, I think it's going to be very hard for Fierceness to be able to win the race. I don't think he can go gate to wire in this spot. So because of where the pace drew, I think it sets up very well for some of these horses that want to sit mid-pack and want to grind from the back. You do need to have tactical speed if you're on the inside, though, because this is very similar. Like you think about the Derby, and we always talk about how the rail sucks at the Derby because you got 20 horses crashing down on you. Well, because the speed's on the outside here, you're going to have horses crashing down toward the inside, because they're most likely going to be faster early in the race. And so all of a sudden, tactical speed from the inside or being able to be forwardly placed, but not on the lead matters a lot more. That's another benefit to City of Troy. We'll see how he's able to run. It should actually help out Forever Young as well, who I thought drew exceptionally well in this spot. He should be able to get a very good trip from his post. So to me, it's the loser of the post was actually Fierceness just because of where the other speed's drawn.
Okay, I will note that I've been to Del Mar a bunch of times when the rail has been white fucking hot. And I don't know, just keep something to watch for. Certainly, I was happy seeing Forever Young draw the 1 personally, even though I don't know that he wants to necessarily be that close to the lead. I think he can. What do you make of some of the older, I guess I'll ask a closer question first. Have we just
I got
seen
a
the best
closer
of
for a different race.
we've seen Sierra Leone, the best of it at the Bluegrass, and it's just not going to happen. Stop trying to make Sierra Leone happen.
I don't think Sierra Leone can win, but I think you do have to kind of at least say, look, if you think Fierceness is the best horse in the race,
sure,
and Sierra Leone has run second to Fierceness, arguably two best races, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he ran third in the Travers, but Torpedo Anna's going to run in the Distaff earlier, so she's not going to be here. He ran really well behind those two horses in the Travers. And you could make an argument that he's improved over those last two starts, and he is coming in his best form ever as well. Feels like an underneath horse to me. It just feels like everything has to go perfectly for Sierra Leone to ever win, and you're not getting 20-1, 30-1. You're always ending up in that, like, right, I think his morning line's 12. I think that's what I saw. Probably going to get 12. Bet down to 10, 8, and that's too short of a price for a horse where everything needs to go right, and you already know at least one horse in the race is better than him. So like Sierra Leone to me is a tough one to put on top, but one that I would not exclude off that third and fourth line of the Super.
Okay. What's Tapatrice doing here?
Tapatrice had a resurgence, man. Like there's a new Tapatrice in town. What? Like he won a race. Congratulations, Tapatrice. And he looked good doing it at Backwoodock last time. Now the race before it, he was the favorite. Didn't look great, but if you go back to the race at Monmouth, it was by far his career best race. It felt like something clicked. And the difference with Tapatrice now than Tapatrice at the Derby, he doesn't like break terribly and sit all the way back of the field anymore. If you look at the last three races, he is within a couple lengths of the lead every single time at the half mile pole. So it's a different style of Tapatrice. That's why he's here, because they still believe in the talent. And now you're starting to see him put together the mental capacity to be able to actually start races well.
Okay.
A long way from Jersey. Tapit. I did have a question about Torpedo Anna being
wait before we move off this race.
Massive favorite in the distance.
We'll get there because we want to talk about more thoughts on stuff. The Baffert horse have any interest in what's going on here? Like, Bob Baffert is someone that you never really want to just entirely write off, I assume. But I have no idea that what to make of Newgate. Third last time out at the California Crown Stakes, which was a Grade 1, but it was a pretty unimpressive run, I thought. Is he going to get bet if nothing else?
I don't think so. I think he's going to be kind of an afterthought here. Again, he's another one where, like, what trip do you project he wins with? It becomes very difficult because he's going to want to go, and he's got to deal with Arthur's ride early, and he doesn't really have the capacity to pass really good horses late. The California crop, for lack of a better term, sucks this year. Like there's just not many good horses out there in the older group. And so he's beating bad horses or running second or third to bad horses, or I shouldn't say bad, lower level Grade 1 horses. Like the East Coast is clearly the best coast from a 3-year-old and 4-year-old perspective this year. So I would not touch Newgate. That's one of those where like he may matter early, but I don't expect him to matter late.
Okay, perfect. All right. Distaff, go ahead, Andy.
Just a massive favorite for Torpedo Anna. And she looks good. That's fine. But I don't know a lot. I think, Candied is maybe there's Sugarfish, I guess, and Alice.
Is that
yeah, there's not a lot of their names I know here. Is there somebody underneath that has some decent shots at this and based on kind of the pace that she's going to set?
They call them.
Yeah, I think this is a very good race to take a shot at a cold exacta. I don't think Torpedo Anna loses. I don't. And if you go back to like 2000, it depends if Fierceness wins. Yeah, because if Fierceness wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, he's horse of the year.
Okay.
If he doesn't, and Torpedo Anna wins this, I think she's horse of the year. So we do have a little award drama if you bet that market on Saturday here as well. When in 2020. When Monomoy Girl won, she was 4-5, and the exact in this race paid $21 with a 12-1 shot underneath her. I think that's where you look here. Is like I don't like the 6 horse in this spot, who's going to be your second choice, Raging Sea. And so if you throw out Raging Sea, who's going to be the other horse mainly bet, all of a sudden you can play pretty much anyone else you want in an exacta, and you're going to get at least 6-7-1 in that spot. And if you play a longer shot, you're going to get 18, 22, 25, whatever you want to 1 there. So I think this is a race where you say, okay, I'm going to give Torpedo Anna the pass, but then I'm going to go ahead and pick who I like in second. I think that the Japanese horses are a little bit interesting here.
Ooh.
You've got a couple that are coming over here. I think this is a race where it's absolutely wide open. Candide makes some sense if you think she's going to be able to kind of run back.
Did
to
she
what
run in the
able to
Oaks?
do. She did, but she can't. She can't beat Torpedo Anna. She's proven that multiple times at this point. But she's a horse that can definitely run second in this race, and she's going to be 10-1, 12-1, somewhere in that range. And the exact will pay $15 to $20 for $1. Like 15-1, that's not bad at all in this type of race. So I like the Torpedo Anna, and then find someone you like in second as a cold exact in that spot.
Second, I'm building supers, buddy.
Well, look, I don't. If you like one of the if you like the 6, you like the 9, the other 2 favorites, go ahead and play a try and pick whichever one you like in second, and put 2 in the third spot in the try, and put 2 and 3 in the super. Like, you can spread out a little bit deeper, especially if you're putting a price in that second hole there in the superfecta, the trifecta.
Yeah. What I got to look at Awesome Result a little more. That price is coming down too. It looks like I like that race too, and I like the turf races.
Okay. Yeah. What you want to touch some of the other bases here?
Let's talk about the race I'm most excited about. That's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Sprint, okay.
Turf Sprint, the 5th race on Saturday. It's a 3:41 East Coast post time. Cogburn's your heavy favorite, 7-5. Cogburn, clearly the best turf sprinter in the U.S., set a world record at Saratoga this summer, going 5.5 furlongs.
Remember that.
Euros have traditionally struggled in the turf sprints at the Breeders' Cup. Yeah. The last 2 years, that started to change. They've started to get better and better. And oh man, did they bring a couple bangers this year. The one horse, Believing, 12-1 on the morning line, really interesting to me. Bradsell is my top pick in that race, 7-2. It's a European horse that has been an absolute truck over there. Has won 3 of the last 4 starts, ran second in the other, missed by a length and a half, and it was just kind of one of those spots where it got knocked around in the stretch. That's why the horse didn't win. I think the Europeans have a very good shot at upsetting Cogburn. If you want a big price, Starlust, 30-1. That horse has a shot at hitting hitting the super or hitting the try. I'm not sure he can win, but it's a horse that ran ahead behind Believing, who's the one horse who's 12-1 a couple races back. And they were only 3/4 of a length behind Bradsell, who's my top pick in the race in that race as well. So these are 3 horses that have run competitively against each other in Europe, and yet one is 7-2, the other is 12-1, and the last one is 30-1. In a turf sprint where trip matters so much, there shouldn't be that large of a gap between those.
We got a question. We got a horse question. People are pumped for this. Does Full Count Felicia have a shot in the Maker's Mark filly and mare 2 million? Saturday race?
I got to find the race. I think that is the 9th race, if I'm correct. Filly and mare turf. I don't have her on top from what and this is also an hour and a half into handicapping full card. So full transparency here. We're firing off quick here.
Yeah, she's kind of way down actually.
Who's the
Warlike Goddess?
She's a longer price
favorite, right?
Yeah, terrible favorite. Don't bet Warlike Goddess.
Terrible favorite.
I don't. I no interest at 5-2 especially. I was really into Emily Upjohn. She ended up not running in this race. She's going to run in the turf. So that kind of was a bummer for me. The speed in this race, I think, is what causes problems for Full Count Felicia. You've got 3 or 4 U.S. horses that want to go, and you've got a couple Europeans that want to be forwardly placed as well. So it's hard for me to get really excited about any of those horses. The other horse I was really excited about actually also is not in the race, and that was Wingspan. So neither of them ended up in this spot. So this is one where I'm kind of having to go back to the drawing board on for a top pick. But I can tell you right now, Warlike Goddess at 5-2, no thanks. That's just way too short. I don't know this many good horses.
I love it.
What's the distance? Is that a mile or a mile and an eighth?
Mile and
3/8.
3/8, yeah.
Oh, Jesus, this is the long one.
Yeah, this is like 2 laps. Yeah, this is the one where you're like,
this is the one that takes.
Yeah.
Or that was like, why did they put the gate there?
What do you think of the Juvies? Is that gambling or is there a handicap to be had here? Because I mean, they don't. I don't know. I'm not. No one's really jumped off the page to me.
The Juvie draw was the most interesting for me. East Avenue, your favorite draw is the rail. Bob Baffert likes to not cheat, but stack the deck in his favor. And well, maybe cheat too, actually, if we're going to be.
I mean, he did get suspended
him a lot of latitude.
Yeah.
he's like
in race. In race. We'll go in race.
He's been a lot of places. Yeah. Go ahead.
And getaway car draws the 2. And East Avenue is now going to have to 100% send. And I think that getaway car could cause some real problems for East Avenue. Getaway car has gone sub 22 first quarter and gone 24 and change, or 22 and 1 first quarter as well, multiple times. His better horse is his other horse. Yeah. And so it feels to me like if you are Baffert, you're playing a little game here and you're saying, I'm going to go from the 2 East Avenue. And if you want to not burn yourself out, you've got to sit behind me. And we're going to sit our other horse directly to your outside and not let you out. And then essentially Citizen Bull gets the run. I do like Jonathan's way. I do like Jonathan's way a little bit in this spot. Drew middle of the pack. I believe 9-2 on the morning line right now. Went gate to wire in the Iroquois. So you have the speed concern, but in the debut at Saratoga goes 6 furlongs and able to break 8th out of a 9-horse field, comes from 7th off the pace to be able to get the win. So you have a horse at 2 that has shown the ability to win on the lead and win from the back of the pack. And to me, that's a big positive for these horses that generally struggle to develop mentally. And that's a big part of these 2-year-old races is how much adversity can you handle, especially when you're going 2 turns for the first time and dealing with all these other aspects. So Jonathan's way stands out to me a little bit here.
Okay. Very cool.
Just a quick question on the way you phrase that, because you've said it for years. The other handicappers have heard that when you say go 2 turns, you're talking about the distance. It's not the turns, or is it the turns?
It's literally the turns. And so like this is a
I've been back and forth on that.
Yeah, this is a 1 6 race. It's a 2-turn race, and you look at like the Champagne, Chancellor McPatrick, who's your second choice on the outside, who I think is awfully live in this spot too. She get a great setup with the pace.
Flavian Pride, great.
Yeah, he went a mile last time at Aqueduct, but that's a 1-turn mile. So the difference with going 2 turns is that you see different styles of pace in those races. You also have to deal with getting position on the inside in the first turn, so you don't want to lose too much ground by being 3 wide on both turns. That can affect horses a lot more. And so with a 1-turn race, if you're the best horse, you can just go ahead and be the best horse. You can go 5 wide and beat horses that you're better than that. In a 2-turn race, you have to be much more strategic about what you do, and it's highly more likely you take kickback if you're coming from off the pace because you have to be in that pack around that first turn. You can't just say, I'm going to go 5 wide.
You can't take the widest. Yeah, no. You can't take the longest path.
Well, a lot of times you'll see in these 2-year-old races, if someone thinks they have the best horse, they're like, I'm going to sit in the 4 path down the backstretch in a 1-turn race just so that my horse is out in the clear. And then I'm going to go 4 wide around that turn and I'm going to beat you anyway. And that's not something you can do in these races. And so it takes a little bit more experience mentally to be able to deal with those other obstacles that are being thrown at you.
I like that.
I dig it. Well, that was fantastic, man. I have a dozen more questions, but I don't want to take up all your time. You're like, how long do you think that? I don't know, half an hour. Here you are 42 minutes later. So I appreciate you. What do you have planned as far as content? Where can people find more insight, more information about the Breeders' Cup horse racing, all of that from the great Mike Somich?
So I will be all over the place this week. So
I bet you will.
Just a couple, right? I'm on VSiN on Thursday and Friday, TBD on the time. So we'll have some updates there. If you can check out you can follow me on Twitter at SalmonBomb18. I'll tweet out when I'm going live over there. The Magic Mike Show will cover the Pick 5, including the Breeders' Cup Classic on Thursday. That's 1-2 Pacific.
It's a weird order of races, by the way.
TV got in the way because this is a football Saturday, and how many channels have football now? They're like, well, we can't really go until 8:25 on the East Coast.
What's the name of that YouTube channel that the Magic Mike's on?
Racing Dudes. It's just go search Racing Dudes. You'll be able to find it there. Racing_Dudes on Twitter. They'll tweet it out too when we go live. That's 1-2 Pacific on Thursday. Honestly, I don't say this often. This could be a 6-figure Pick 5. I'm not saying I'm going to hit it if it is, but this is one of those Pick 5s. This middle after. So we were talking about this on the draw show.
Which races are we getting bombs?
I think you can get a bomb in the Breeder, like the Breeders' Philly Mare Turf that we talked about. That is a bomb race for me now. The Sprint is an absolute bomb race.
Really? You're against Carl Spackler?
Carl Spackler's in the Breeders' Cup Mile. He drew the outside post. That's a
Oh.
bomb race to me. Like
Okay.
there are a lot of 12-1 horses that could string themselves together. If you hit 1 or 2 daily doubles on Saturday, you could have a very good day. There's going to be 2 horses that are sub 2-1 on Saturday. Cogburn's one of them. Torpedo Anna's the other. I think Torpedo Anna wins. I think Cogburn loses. It could be a very, very crazy sequence through those pick 5s after you get through the distaff.
Oh, I love it, man. Oh, very fired up.
It's gonna be a terrible page of notes as usual. Just a mess.
All right. Well,
obviously, follow Mike on Twitter. Follow VSIN. They'll tweet out obviously when he's doing some stuff.
Yeah.
And then check out the Magic Mike stuff, the Racing Dudes. All that stuff's great. Especially if you want to just
on NBC and Peacock, the Breeders' Cup Classic, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, NBC and Peacock. I will be there I think I'm getting there at 9 a.m. on Saturday. I'm doing some digital stuff for NBC, so I'll get you some boots on the ground details about the conditions. It's been a weird weather month here in California. I'm sure you guys are getting it up in Santa Barbara as well. But just a lot of just fog and then hot and then rain. It's been a bizarre weather month, so kind of fascinated to see how it looks on Saturday. But I'll give you some trackside details on Twitter as well, of course. And
love it. I should mention too. We're gonna have a guide over at VSiN. So if you want to get a Breeders' Cup betting guide, I'm writing about the filly and mare. I'm writing about the turf and the mile. So those will both be in there. Also picks for the classic. Racing Dudes is doing a derby or a betting guide for the Breeders' Cup as well. So you can get that over there. And then Racing Dudes is going to be live on Friday and Saturday during the races as well. I'm not going to be on the whole time. I'm going to be jumping on and off. But if you want to check that out, that'll be available too. So that's a bunch of free content around it. If you want paid picks, that's available as well. But everything that you can get is out there for free if you look for it.
Cool. Well, best of luck. God, I'm looking at the weather right now. It looks terrible.
It looks like a mess. I actually read there might be rain on one of the days. I'm like, it's San Diego.
Yeah. This is how we get
out. Is there going to be rain?
5.
Yeah, it's going to be chaotic, man. It's going to be beautiful on Friday. And of course, I'm not going Friday. Damn it. Well, so it goes.
Just like,
all right, man. Best of luck.
Appreciate you giving us time, man.
Yeah.
Always
check out Mike at SomoBomb18 on Twitter.
Yes, sir.